The doors slid open before he reached them. That was the first thing people noticed. Not the cars. There were 4 of them, black, windowless, engines barely whispering. But the doors. The way they opened before he touched them, like the building itself had been waiting. Inside the restaurant, no one moved. 3 hours earlier, a woman named Osei had walked through those same doors, carrying a plastic bag from the dollar store and wearing shoes that had seen better days, better months, really better years. The soles were separating at the left heel. She had wrapped them with a rubber band that morning, and the rubber band had already slipped twice on the walk from the bus stop. She was 31 years old. She had worked the overnight shift at a packaging facility on the east side of the city, the kind of job where you stand for 8 hours and the fluorescent lights never turn off and the manager calls everyone by their last name. She had clocked out at 6, taken the 40-minute bus ride home, changed her daughter's school clothes, walked her 3 blocks to the bus stop, put her on the bus, and then, instead of sleeping, which is what every bone in her body was demanding, she had come here. To this restaurant. Osei African Kitchen and Grill, which was not actually named after her, but which she had always thought about when she saw the sign. Because Osei was her grandmother's name, and her grandmother used to say that your name following you through the world is a sign you are going the right way. She had come here because today was Thursday, and on Thursdays, the restaurant opened its private dining room to a foundation that served meals to formerly incarcerated women transitioning back into the workforce. Osei had been out for 14 months. She had been attending every Thursday she could. She sat down in a chair near the entrance, just for a moment. Her feet were throbbing. The plastic bag was on her lap. Inside it was a small gift, a beaded bracelet she had made at the facility during a crafts program for the woman who ran the foundation, Miss Clara, who had visited Osei twice during her time inside and called her my daughter and meant it. She was not bothering anyone. She was sitting in a chair and her shoes were held together with a rubber band and she was 31 years old and she was tired. "Excuse me." The voice came from across the lobby. A man in his early 40s with a pressed white shirt and a name tag that said Devon, assistant general manager. He was walking toward her with the particular stride of someone who has decided something before they have spoken. "Can I help you?" "No, thank you," Osei said. "I'm waiting for the foundation dinner. It starts at 7. Devon looked at the plastic bag. He looked at her shoes. He looked at her face, which was the color of dark amber, and which, at that moment, wore nothing except patience. "The foundation event is in the private dining room," he said. "That's through the side entrance, around the building." "I know," she said. "I just came in to sit for a minute. My feet. This area is for restaurant guests." Osei looked around. There were 3 people in the lobby. One was on a phone call. One was looking at a menu display on the wall. None of them were being asked to move. "I'll only be a few minutes," she said. "I'm going to have to ask you to wait outside." She did not argue. That was something people who had never been in the position she had been in did not understand. That sometimes you do not argue. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand, in your body, what arguing costs. She stood up. She picked up her plastic bag. She walked to the door. Outside, the evening air was warm and thick. She stood on the sidewalk. She looked at her shoes. The rubber band had slipped again. She took out her phone. She did not call anyone for help. She did not post anything. She opened her contacts, scrolled to a name, and pressed call. It rang twice. "Hey, baby," said the voice on the other end, deep, familiar. The voice of a man who had known her since she was 12 years old and always answered on the second ring. "Uncle Kwabena," she said. "I'm outside the restaurant. They asked me to leave the lobby." A pause. Then, "Which restaurant?" "Osei's Kitchen." Another pause. Longer this time. Go wait by the door, he said. I'll be there in 20 minutes. You don't have to. Osei. His voice was quiet. Go wait by the door. Now you might be wondering what kind of man calls back in 20 minutes with 4 cars. Let me tell you about Kwabena. He was 58 years old. He had come to this country from Ghana 33 years ago with a suitcase, a cousin's address written on a piece of paper, and enough money to last 2 weeks. He had worked every job that would have him. Dishwasher, night security, delivery driver. Then he had taken a loan, a small, terrifying loan, and opened a dry cleaning shop in a neighborhood where people kept telling him no one would come. People came. He opened a second location, then a third. Then he moved into commercial laundry for hotels, then linen supply, then logistics. 30 years of early mornings and late nights, and never, not once, throwing away anything that still had use in it, including people. He owned, at present, 14 businesses across 3 states. He sat on the boards of 2 foundations. He had never, in 30 years, put his name on a building, not because he was ashamed, but because, as he told anyone who asked, the building does not need my name. I need to know what the building does. He did not dress like money. He drove himself, usually, in a car that was 6 years old and clean, but not new. When his staff had urged him, 3 years ago, to hire a security detail for certain public appearances, he had said no, then said yes after his daughter cried, and the 4 men had been with him since, professional and quiet like him. His sister's daughter, Osei, was the one person in this world for whom he would cancel anything. She had been through things. He knew what she had been through. He knew what the 14 months had cost her, and the 2 years before that, and the decisions that were made when she was 26, and desperate and alone, and did not have anyone telling her there was another way. He knew all of it. He had been there for the visiting hours, and he had been there for the release, and he had been there every Thursday when the foundation met, waiting in the parking lot. Not because she needed a ride, but because he needed her to know that someone was there. He had told no one in the restaurant industry that he was related to her. He did not want her to get something she had not earned. But he also was not going to let his sister's daughter stand on a sidewalk in broken shoes because a man with a name tag had decided she did not belong in a chair. He made 2 calls on the drive over, one to his assistant, one to a number he had not used in a while. Osei stood by the door. She did not look at the people going in and out. She looked at the street. She was used to waiting. She had gotten very good at waiting, at making herself small inside the waiting, at finding something to think about that was not the humiliation of the moment. She thought about her daughter, Nana, who was 9 and who had told her that morning, very seriously, that she wanted to be a marine biologist, and who had then asked what marine biologists ate for breakfast. She almost smiled. A woman came out of the restaurant, mid-50s. Natural hair, silver-streaked, pulled back. She was wearing an apron and carrying a clipboard, and she looked at Osei with the quick, recognizing look of someone who had seen this before. You with the foundation group? Yes, ma'am. Why are you out here? Osei didn't answer right away. The woman looked through the glass door. She looked back at Osei. Her expression shifted into something tired and knowing and angry, though the anger was not at Osei. Come inside, she said. Come sit in the kitchen. I'll get you some water. I'm fine out here, thank you. You're not fine out here, baby. It's 89 degrees. She held the door open. I'm Precious. I'm the head chef. Devin doesn't run my kitchen. Osei went inside. The kitchen was warm and bright and smelled like groundnut soup and garlic, and something sweet that Osei could not name. Precious poured her a glass of ice water and gestured to a stool by the prep counter, and said nothing more about what had happened outside, which was, Osei thought, the kindest thing she could have done. What's in the bag? Precious asked, not prying. Just the natural conversation of someone who fills silence with warmth. A bracelet. For Miss Clara. You made it? Yes. Precious looked at the bag for a moment. Then she said, she's going to love it. At 7 minutes to 7, Devon came into the kitchen. He stopped when he saw Osei on the stool. I thought I asked. She's my guest, Precious said, without turning from the stove. You want to discuss it, you can call Gerald. Gerald was the owner. Devon knew that Precious had worked for Gerald for 11 years, and that Gerald had once flown Precious to Accra for a culinary research trip, and that Precious could, in fact, call Gerald before Devon could find Gerald's number on his phone. Devon left the kitchen. Precious watched him go. Then she turned to Osei and said, simply, some people think this place belongs to them because they hold the keys. The doors opened at 6:58. Not the kitchen door. The front doors. The ones that slid open before they were touched. Osei was still in the kitchen when Precious looked up at the security monitor, mounted in the corner, and went very still. 4 black SUVs, parking in the loading zone out front, which no one ever used because Devon had decided it made the entrance look less upscale. 2 men stepped out of the first car and stood by the door. 2 more from the last car. And then, from the middle car, a man in a dark blue suit, nothing expensive looking about it, navy, simple, who looked like someone's uncle. Because he was someone's uncle. Kwabena walked through the front doors. He did not announce himself. He did not hand anyone a card. He stood in the lobby and looked around with the calm, unhurried gaze of a man who has owned rooms before. Devon was at the host stand. He looked at the 4 men by the door. He looked at the man in the navy suit. Good evening, sir. Do you have a reservation? Kwabena looked at him. I'd like to speak with the general manager. I'm the assistant general manager. I can help. The general manager, Kwabena said. Please. Something in his voice made Devon pick up the phone. Gerald came from the back office, still holding a pen. He was 63, Ghanaian American, 2nd generation, and he had opened this restaurant as a tribute to his mother's cooking and his father's belief that black people deserved fine dining that felt like home. He saw the man in the navy suit. He looked at the 4 men by the door. He looked at the navy suit again. Then he looked at Kwabena's face, and his expression changed. Not into fear, into recognition, the slow, arriving kind, like a name coming to you just before it's gone. Kwabena Asante, he said. Gerald. Kwabena extended his hand. It's been a few years. They shook. Gerald's eyes moved briefly to the 4 men, then back. What brings you in? My niece, Kwabena said. She was asked to leave your lobby this evening. Gerald's jaw tightened. I wasn't aware of that. I know. It was the way he said I know. Not sharp, not accusatory, just flat and certain. That made Gerald understand this was not a conversation about what Gerald did not know. It was a conversation about what Gerald was going to do. Gerald turned. Devon. Devon came forward. And Kwabena Asante, who had not raised his voice once, who had not said a single threatening thing, who had simply driven 20 minutes because his sister's daughter called him, stood quietly while the man who had put her on the sidewalk had to explain, in front of his general manager and 4 security personnel and a head chef who had appeared in the kitchen doorway, exactly what he had said and why. Devon said she wasn't a guest. Gerald said every human being who walks through that door is a guest. Devon said she didn't have a reservation. Gerald said neither did Oxygen, and they still let it in. Devon went quiet. Precious brought Osei out of the kitchen. She did not know what she was walking into. She had heard voices, calm voices, which were sometimes more frightening than raised ones. And Precious had simply touched her arm and said, "Come." She came through the kitchen door into the lobby and saw her uncle. She stopped. He looked at her the way he always looked at her, Like she was 12 years old and had just showed him a drawing she was proud of, and he wanted her to know that he saw it, really saw it, and it was good. "Hey, baby," he said. She crossed the lobby and he put his arm around her shoulders, the waffy he had when she was small, and she was 31 years old and tired, and her shoes were held together with a rubber band, and she did not cry because she had learned not to. But she leaned into him a little. Gerald stepped forward. "Ma'am," he said, "I am very sorry for what happened this evening. It should not have happened. Not in my restaurant." Osei looked at him. She said, "Thank you." He turned to Devon. What happened in the next 10 minutes was not a termination. Kwabena had asked Gerald, quietly, before Osei came out, to consider what firing a man teaches him versus what making him understand his mistake teaches the people around him. Gerald had listened. He was a man who knew how to listen. Devon was not fired. He was removed from front-of-house management and moved to an administrative role. He was required to attend 2 training sessions with a program that Gerald's restaurant had never before partnered with. A re-entry employment initiative for formerly incarcerated women. Osei did not know that last part until 6 weeks later, when Miss Clara mentioned it at the Thursday Foundation dinner, not knowing that Osei was the reason it had started. She almost told Miss Clara then. She didn't. She thought about what her Uncle Kwabena always said, which was that doing something good and telling people you did it are 2 different actions, and only one of them is about the good. She put the bracelet in Miss Clara's hand instead, beaded in blue and gold, which were the colors of the Foundation's logo. Though Osei had not known that when she chose them, she had chosen them because they were her daughter Nana's favorite colors. Miss Clara turned the bracelet over in her hands. She looked up. "You made this?" "Yes, ma'am." "Baby." Miss Clara shook her head. "You made this with your hands." "I did. Then it is worth more than anything I have ever been given." She put it on her wrist. She wore it every Thursday after that. Osei noticed every time. Subscribe if you believe that dignity is not something you earn, that it comes with you into every room, even when the room doesn't want to admit it. The night Osei's shoes gave out entirely, the rubber band snapping finally, irrevocably, on the walk back to the bus stop, she sat down on a bench and laughed. Really laughed. The kind that comes from somewhere deep and tired and alive. A faded pair of shoes, a plastic bag, a bracelet made of blue and gold beads, and a chair. Because that is enough. That has always been enough.